In this video, we're going to start to look at one of the biggest buzzwords in AI technology for probably the past 12 months, which is MCP servers. So for those who don't know what an MCP server is, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. This was a concept that was introduced by Anthropic, who are the people that make and support Claude. And the idea of MCP is it allows you to give tools to your AI agents such that they can go and pull information or take actions on your behalf. So in reality, this is a very simplified version of what this looks like, but honestly, this is probably as much as you need to know. So you have on the left hand side here your end user, which is the person interacting with your agent. They ask your agent, for example, can you tell me how many different tables I have in my Supabase project? That is a plain text English prompt in this case. The AI agent takes that and it connects to a Supabase MCP server. Now these servers are very lightweight, and in the case of Cursor, what it does is it spins up these servers locally. So a server in this instance is just a piece of software that runs in the background that allows you to connect to an endpoint. It's not the big chunky server racks that most people think of when they think of servers. So the AI agent connects to the Supabase MCP server, and the first thing I'll ask is, what tools do I have? And then MCP will say, okay, here's my list of tools. I can create an SQL query, I can find tables, I can find projects. Tells the agent this, and then the agent says, cool, I've been asked to find what projects we have. Back to the MCP server, initiates the find projects tool. That then actually queries Supabase to pull back that information and pulls it all the way back to the agent such that it has essentially a list of the projects or tables or whatever that you have in your Supabase instance. And then the same applies, for example, for GitHub. You have tools like push to repo, pull from repo, create repo. There's actually a ton of these that GitHub have. It's very comprehensive. And again, you could say to your agent, if when you're working in your project in Cursor, what I want you to do is push up all the changes from my local Git repo up to GitHub so I can store them in the cloud. So again, the agent does the same thing. Talk to the MCP server, it finds out what tools it has and tells the agent, and then the agent says, cool, can I push all this code up? And then the MCP server picks the tool figure it out. And again, natural language prompting, you don't need to write any queries or code for it to be able to do this, which is super useful. And then again, same for Brave Search, for searching the web and crawling websites. It will then connect out to the internet and bring your results back to your agent, depending on what it's asked. That's probably as much as you'll need to know about MCP servers in terms of how they work. There are, if you want to read the white paper from Anthropic, that's the website there, where they introduced it towards the end of last year. You can by all means go and have a read of that. There is another interesting website as well called modelcontextprotocol.io, which actually dives into way more detail. So if you're feeling brave and you're feeling like you actually want to learn how to build your own MCP servers, this is the place to come. It has all the information in here that you need, specifications and concepts and all that kind of stuff. So feel free to navigate through that at your own pace should you wish. Now, for the purposes of this demo, what we are going to do is we are going to add the Perplexity MCP server to our installation of Cursor. How do we do that? Okay, so the first thing we actually do is there is this GitHub repository of honestly thousands of different MCP servers. Everybody has an MCP server this day, you name it, Notion, Atlassian, take your pick, Supabase, you know, there's tons, Redis, lots and lots in here. I'm not gonna read them all out, but you get the idea. There are a ton. In our case, what we're going to look for is Perplexity. And then we'll just find this is the one we're after. Okay, so you can see, like, even within this, there are a few different Perplexity servers, but this is the one that we're going to use today. Okay, so let me just get rid of that so you can see. So we're going to click on this link here, Perplexity, And that will bring us to the actual Perplexity GitHub repo for its MCP server. Now this is, it looks like actually created by Perplexity AI, so this is great. You do have other variations of this which can be supported just by individuals, but in this case it's Perplexity AI, so you know it's going to be good. So what we need to do is we're going to scroll down here on this page until we find our instructions on how to integrate this with Cursor. Now these are a little bit out of date, but the concept still stands, and I'll walk you through all this now. So let me just walk you through it. Actually, that's the easiest thing to do here. Right, within your Cursor environment, so this is where we left off last time. You'll remember that we were setting up the ability for a customer to email us from the website directly. That's exactly where this is. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to File, Preferences, and Cursor Settings. And within our Cursor Settings, we're going to go to Tools and Integrations. So these are the the MCP servers that I have here in a minute. So I have Archon, GitHub, Brave Search, MCP, Superbase, Context 7, all super useful. For us to now add our Perplexity API, it is quite simple. So we click here where it says New MCP Server. It's going to, you will see that this is how we have them defined in here. So these are all the servers that I just mentioned: GitHub, Archon, GitHub, Brave Search, Firecrawl, Superbase, and Context 7. So that's the last one in there. Within this file, these MCP servers are defined within these blue curly brackets. Now yours may look slightly different on your screen, but after the name, colon, curly brackets, and that's where it goes. For you to add another one, what you need to do is, if you click on this top curly bracket, it will put a box around the bottom curly bracket. That is the end of it. Right after that, you want to hit comma and return. And then what you're going to do is you are going to go to, here we go, sorry. We're going to go here, and we're looking, so there are variations on how to do this. This is if you wanted to run it in a Docker container. We're not going to do that. We're actually going to run it using npx. So what we want to grab is this, and you can line up that double quote with that curly bracket. That's all of the code that you want. Now you can obviously see in here that you need to put in your Perplexity API key. That's quite simple. Set yourself up with a Perplexity account, go to the Perplexity API section, generate a key, copy paste in there. Super simple. So we're going to grab that. I actually have it set up over here on a separate screen, so I'm going to grab mine with my API key. I'm going to go back to Cursor, and right under where I put the comma and the new line, I'm just going to paste in here, and you can see very similar in terms of format for all the other MCP servers I have defined in here. So just saying Perplexity Ask is the one we're going to be running. It's going to be running using npx, and this is the API key that we're going to use. Excuse me. So we save that file, and then we go back to our Cursor settings, and hopefully, there we go. So at the bottom now, you can see we have added the Perplexity Ask. It has one tool available, which is Ask. So essentially, let's make something up for a second. So we can say to our agents, find out the latest implementation details for a common Next.js app. Use Perplexity. Give me a summary. So we hit enter, and then if we cross our fingers and hope, you can see here, I'll use Perplexity to get the latest implementation details. There we go. And it looks like on this instance it has failed for some reason. So I'm going to just get it to try again. Oh, there we go. So it's actually done it. It was just being slow. Okay, great. So I'm going to bin that request off. Okay, so you can see in here, I've asked it to go and look at best practices essentially for Next.js, and it's gone and used Perplexity, so we can probably see that at the top. So those are the parameters. This is the result, and this is what it's actually pulled back from the internet, which is all of this detail here. And then what it's done is format that for me here in an easy to read format, bullet points, nice and easy to understand. So now, web search isn't something that you would use all the time, to be honest with you. In MCP, it's just an easy one to demo because it's very quick to get it to do what you want. But for example, if we look at the rest of the MCP servers that I have here, for example, GitHub has 26 different tools available to it. And you can click expand and you can see what each of these tools are. So create or update a file, search repositories, create repositories, there's absolute ton of them in here. Now, where this becomes useful is, for example, I have this Context 7 MCP server here that I have set up. Now, Context 7, for those of you who don't know, is essentially a repository of, to my knowledge, basically all of the technical documentation for all of the different technologies and frameworks that are out there, and it's searchable. I think it's under the hood, it's a vector database, but it is searchable. So you can say, for example, when you are thinking about setting up your project for the first time, you can say to your cursor agent, can you please go and look at best practices in Context 7 for Next.js or Python or take your pick, C#, Java, whatever you're writing in. You can say, go and look at best practices, and then when you're constructing my project, make sure you are adhering to those best practices. The point of MCP servers is twofold. One is you want to be able to give your cursor agent as much context as it needs. So by using something like Context 7, it allows it to go out to the internet, find information, and then incorporate that back into what it's about to build. The other thing that it is useful for is taking action. So GitHub is a good example of this, where we're not necessarily pulling back information that we want to use, we're pushing something back out into the world, where we're pushing our code up to our GitHub repo, or creating new repositories, etc., etc. So context and then actions. That's the two things you'll get from MCP servers. Now, I would advise you to take a bit of time and have a look at all the different ones that are available. I mean, you can see, look, there's one for golf. What else do we have in here? Redis. We have SemGrep, and there's a ton. I'm not going to go through them all, but you can see by the scroll bar on the right here, there's absolutely thousands of these. How do you find the one that you want? Control F is how I would do it. Perplexity in this case, and then that'll bring you to where you want to go. So that is it. That is our cursor set up with another MCP server that gives us an extra tool where we can go and run queries against Perplexity to bring us back information, or we can use Context 7 to pull back information, or we can use Supabase to manage our database, or we can use GitHub to manage our code. All super useful stuff. And the beautiful thing about all of this is, other than copying and pasting, you actually don't need any technical knowledge to be able to do this, because the whole point of an MCP server is you're not doing any of the technical stuff. You're telling your AI agent what you want to do. It is finding the tools and it is taking the actions in the background, and it just tells you when it's finished. So super useful, and will make your life super easy. I would advise you all to experiment with these as much as you can, to find the ones that are most useful for you.